Hello everybody, this is Words of Sorrow, also known as Cars and Cameras, and I know I haven't uploaded in a while, but I thought to kick things back off with this series, I would upload kind of an older video to demonstrate how to play Pavium. So with Pavium, basically your build's going to be supply, then you're going to use Burnout on those two supply pads once they finish building. And then you will go gen, since when you use Burnout on your supply pads, that will grant you enough supply to do that. And then you can go Armory 5th in order to get your hero out, as Pavium does have a pretty good hero unit. This game is against Hecklord, who I know is a decent player. He's not like a top player or a great player by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think he did that badly this game, and I don't think this was a bad demonstration of Pavium. So here I've upgraded one of my supply pads and I've used Burnout, and I'm just going to keep pumping grunts and saving up for that second generator. Your Tech 1 game plan is going to be just a lot of grunts and your hero. Now, with the way this build works, with getting your hero out this early and getting 2 gens up, it doesn't exactly mean you're going to be getting a lot of mini bases early on, so you can get a few of them stolen if your enemy is paying attention and sees you haven't taken them. But for the most part, Pavium doesn't care all that much, because as long as you've got a horde of grunts going around with your hero, you can clear out mini bases pretty easily anyway. So with these grunts that I've opened up with, I'm taking nodes, I'm also taking a mini base, and now that my war council's up, even before I upgrade my second generator, I'm going to get my hero out, as since I already have an upgraded generator up, I really can afford to postpone upgrading the second one for a little bit. And I'm not sure if I do it this game, as it was a while ago, but I would suggest getting grunt mines, since once again this build can get your minis stolen, and you need a way of clearing those out if they do that. Of course, that is situational, but usually most of the time, grunt mines are a good idea anyway. But anyway, not much is happening currently in the game, as this is a pretty big map, and it's not all that common to see a lot of aggression. Sometimes people will do a rush on this map where they time it when the bridge first turns on. I think that's like 2 minutes in. But obviously, they're not going to do that against a Pavium, let alone any Banished, really. Banished are pretty good at shutting down cheeses, since they have access to suicide grunts. But as my second point, I've got Burnout 2. A little tip for using Burnout 2, just use the D-pad to scroll to your base, and it will automatically lock on, so that when you use it, it affects all 4 pads, as you saw it did there. So, Hecklord here has got the central mini, so I'm going to start clearing that out. I'm also going to continue to pump grunts, and I've queued up Tech 2, and Burnout will further reduce the time that Tech 2 takes to research. You can see here how easily just a mob of grunts and a hero can take out a mini base. Pavium in particular is pretty good at that. He is slow, but he hits quite hard. That can be a downside, since if you're outgunned, you can't really retreat because of how slow Pavium is. He also doesn't have access to teleport. So a lot of the time, if you're going to be aggressive like this with Pavium, you have to be pretty careful. Here I stumble into an expo, which kind of surprised me. I know some people play Pavium like that, where they expand and then just try and defend that. Although I've found that if you don't push the expansion and you just hold back and tech up, you can beat that. I do think that staying on one base, at least for Tech 1, is the better play as Pavium. But it seems to have worked out for Hecklord as he kills the grunts and kills Pavium as well. But his mistake is trying to push on me, which, even though it is pretty early on in the game, and Pavium doesn't really have the abilities that make him the turtle god that he is, this is still Sentry, and Sentry is a pretty big map, and it's hard to get reinforcements from one side to the other. So his push isn't going to do all that much. And I've got Burnout 3 here. If you just do it, or adjust it like that, you can affect every building on your base. And that is why Pavium is good. With Burnout 3, your economy just gets so good, even if you're on one base and your opponent's on two, like the situation I'm in right now, it doesn't really matter all that much. Your economy is just gonna boom anyway because of Burnout. In my opinion, Burnout could use a nerf, although I think other aspects of Pavium might have been overly focused on, like his quote-unquote mean beam, Pavium's Y ability. Whenever you have your 4th leader point, although you can unlock it as your 3rd, I would still suggest getting Burnout. Your 4th leader point should be Rain of Fire. And when you get Rain of Fire, you should only use it when you have Pavium there. And you can use Rain of Fire when you have Pavium using the Y ability on your desired target. That slows them, and it also weakens their armor so they take more damage. Now, the recent nerfs did hit that Y ability, and the Y ability has been subject to many nerfs throughout the patches. But it seems like it's a glitch that just won't stop. As in, it's the same with Serena. Even though the freeze has been nerfed, it still seems like sometimes units will just stop when they hit ice, as if they're hitting a wall. Same thing happens with Pavium's Y ability, even though they've tried to tone it down. So you can see I just pulled off that combo there, and it did pretty well. Although he already has Mastodons out with Nightingales, which is a pretty good combo to tank damage with. Although it's not good to avoid damage with. Really, when it comes to playing against Pavium, you don't have much hope of dodging anyway. So I'm just going to keep using Burnout every time I possibly can, and he's managed to push me off again, which I kind of attribute to my lack of Rangers, which I'm now taking care of. In Tech 2, generally, I would say you need both Marauders and Rangers, as that is a good counter that any Banished leader has when it comes to fighting against UNSC infantry balls. If you have pure Marauder, CT Marines will deal with you quite easily, but if you've got Rangers, that takes care of that, and you might also need Reavers to take care of Gales. But here, instead of opting in for that, I'm saving up supply and power for a Scarab, which is what you want to do as Pavium. Now, if you time it better than me, you can get it so that your Scarab is queued while Burnout is affecting the War Council, and the Scarab will come out even faster. I'm not sure how much it reduces the build time by, but it is quite a bit, and that is what makes Pavium good, on top of his leader power combos, and of course his nearly unbreakable late game. So I've also recycled one of my factories, and I'm getting an apex up. And the reason for that is I'm going to need engineers so that I can make sure my Scarab doesn't just pop out and die. Engineers are a really good combo with Scarabs, since they have the invulnerability shield. If they're taking a lot of damage, you can just pop that and get your engineers on them, and your Scarab's health comes back pretty quickly. But for the most part, I'm just sitting mid-map now. I am kind of worried, since he's had that expo up for much longer than I have this new expo up here, and he's got Mastodons. Meanwhile, my Scarab's still not out yet, so I'm going to take a third base in hopes of not getting out-ecoed, although, once again, I still do have this Burnout 3, and I managed to throw it down on the War Council before the Scarab finishes, so I get that extra efficiency. And this is basically what Pavium's game plan is. You upgrade Pavium all the way, the hero unit that is. You get engineers and a Scarab out, and you're pretty much golden from there. As after that, you can keep spamming Scarabs, as Burnout allows you to do that. And not that many leaders can deal with it. I think this might have been a whole patch ago, I'm not sure. Well, this was before the beam buffs, I believe. But for the most part, Pavium is the same, unless I'm reading the patch notes wrong. So your late game is still going to be unbreakable for a few leaders, although I think with the recent nerfs regarding Pavium's stand, the ability that makes his structures invulnerable, has made him more easily broken by a few leaders who couldn't break him otherwise. Although this isn't a turtle guide. I'm not trying to make a turtle guide, as I have sat through a 6-hour game before against Pavium, and I really don't want to subject anyone to that. Anyway, I have Lich as well as I believe that was my 6th point, or, yeah, I think so. And that helps with area denial and just pushing on a base, having reinforcements there instantly. And surprisingly, he's managed to wipe a good bit of my army already, so I'm going to retreat again and let the Lich do some damage to him while I fall back. I believe the Lich has actually been buffed recently, which is not exactly surprising, as most of Pavium's kit is pretty good, but the Lich just seems to spawn and then die and not really do all that much, so now I think it is more viable. I'm going Wraiths now since I'm on Tech 3, and I believe they've also been buffed recently. I'm making sure I keep using Burnout whenever I can. I'm developing my 2 expansions, and I believe that I'm going to scout out the 3rd expo on his side soon. Yep, I'm sending a Banshee there now, just so I can make sure he's not doing anything too sneaky. As while Pavium's good, you still have to be careful. He's not, I don't think he's blatantly broken or OP anymore, although for a long time I did. I even started a change.org petition to get him banned from a tournament, which was ultimately successful, actually. But anyway, I scout I scout the expo, I see he's got it, so I'm going to send my army over there, and I think this is the decisive engagement. When he leaves his base, he leaves defender's advantage. He doesn't have a way to repop and instantly have reinforcements there. Meanwhile, I just have the superior army, as I've got hunters, I've got wraiths, and of course I've got my Scarab. Ever since those Scarab buffs, that's been since Pavium has been quite good. but he's running away, as he should, as Mastodons are pretty tanky, but they still won't deal with this Scarab if he just doesn't have enough of them. So, after this, there's not all that much to say. It's pretty much just macro. As a pretty defensive leader, Pavium does have a pretty big focus on macro management, but a few tips for leader points. Against air, you want to upgrade your Rain of Fire all the way, but against Mastodons like this, it might have been a better choice to go Ultra Mines, as they have, I don't know if they've been nerfed recently. I don't think they have. I'm pretty sure it's just Pavium's Y ability. But those things are still very devastating, still the best mines in the game. So against ground units, most of the time you want to go for Ultra Mines. But if you need to push a base, it is always a good thing to have Rain of Fire, as the Pavium Y ability plus Rain of Fire also works on buildings, and it can melt them quite quickly. So, after this point in the game, it's pretty decided. I'm getting up my 4th Expo, meanwhile he's backed into a corner. Now, if the roles were reversed, and I was Drone and he was Pavium, the situation might be very different, and I could have possibly turtled him for 6 hours till he got hungry and tired and left, but that was not the case. And here you can see that really Pavium's Y ability isn't the most responsive thing in the world, so you just have to be careful and make sure that you're using the meme beam before you Rain of Fire, because otherwise they can just move out of the Rain of Fire like that and it's pretty much wasted. Anyway, I'm going into Banshees now, as really that's not exactly the go-to play here, but they do work well against Mastodons, and as you can see, it really doesn't matter. His base is dying pretty quickly. Yep, it's dead now. And he still doesn't have a good way of dealing with my army. So that's game. I don't think there's really anything else I can point out here that needs any explaining. Really, it's all self-explanatory. I guess I'll just kind of review what your priorities should be as Pavium. So, Tech 1, your build is going to be supply, gen, armory, get out a mob of grunts, as well as your hero. Your first 3 leader points should all be put into Burnout. And then on Tech 2, you should go Marauder Ranger, against UNSC that is, to deal with infantry balls. Against Banished, it might be a better idea to go Hunter Banshee. But against UNSC, I think definitely the preferable composition is Marauder Ranger. And then once you're in Tech 3, which should be pretty shortly, as you are Pavium, you want to get out your Scarab and Engineers. And that's pretty much your game plan. Also, get Rain of Fire for that Y ability combo, which is extremely lethal. Get the Lich if they're going ground units, get Ultra Mines. If you need to push a base or they're going air, you can go invest more points in Rain of Fire. And that's pretty much Pavium. The game isn't quite over yet, but I suppose it's not literally over, but as you can see, there's no possible way it's going to be making a comeback. So I'm just going to end the commentary here and let the game play out. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.
We are ready to take down some areas. Local units. Local units. Local units. Local units. Show me who did this. Banshee, ready for assignment. Local units. Local units. Local units. We've killed the enemy hero. Local units. I am under fire from enemy artillery. I will hold local units. Local units. Local units. Local units. Leader power ready. All units. You proved your worth today,